in-depth conversation. So, Modish, I understand you have some questions. We will get to it. Ashwini, nice to see you. First, let me just ask if you have any general questions about the material or the course before we get into some of the solutions to the problem set. You can just unmute and ask if you feel like asking me a general question. Otherwise, I will just work through some of the problems.
General questions are related to this problem set.
Yes, or anything, any general question. It's we can ask it. I will go through the problem set, but before I do that, if you just have a general question, I'm happy to.
Okay. No, general, sir. General question is like related to my own. Right now, I've just started pursuing PhD.
Oh, okay, very good.
So, sir,
where are you pursuing your PhD?
Sir, I am pursuing PhD from Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla.
Okay,
so,
nice. In what subject?
Sir, actually, my subject is related to project management and infrastructure. But the problem is that my guide is not related to the field. She's, I don't know how they assigned, and I am facing problem in that she's from HR, and I'm from different backgrounds, which is related to something management, project management, and something engineering. So I am not getting that kind of support. I mean, support. She is very supportive in a way, but I mean that kind of guidance in particular subject. I am feeling that उस तरह की support नहीं मिलेगी मेरे को जैसी वो specific होनी चाहिए. और दूसरा HP यूनिवर्सिटी में प्रॉब्लम ये है कि यहाँ पर ना अच्छे जर्नल्स की एक्सेस नहीं है सर. और जो जिस डेप्थ से सर आप करवा रहे हैं जैसे स्टैटिस्टिक्स का ना, so that depth is not there. So जैसे एनालिसिस है, सॉफ्टवेयर है, that's why I was asking first day that fuzzy sets or all that sort of question. I was वो मेरे को उसमें आ रहे थे सर रिसर्च आर्टिकल्स में, पर वो समझ नहीं आ रहे थे. तो that
it's
was
okay.
the problem.
You're free to ask me these things. It's completely fine.
So that's why I asked you that question, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so the thing is, okay. So the thing is, so for the purposes of these kinds of discussions, we can. I should stick to the course material, but once that's finished, we can talk about other things. Now, regarding your situation, it's unfortunate, and unfortunately, it happens, right? That sometimes administratively you're put with a supervisor, and look, PhDs are very difficult things, mostly because you are in a situation where you're no longer a traditional student, right? It's not something, sometimes in the sense that you are not sitting in a classroom where a teacher has to teach you something every day. And very often, some people have very bad relationships with their supervisors, and sometimes it's non-existent. So what you're describing is not ideal. Maybe we can talk separately about ways in which you can try to improve your situation. Maybe, ask for more guidance from people in your university, or ask for an external supervisor. It's sometimes possible.
Yeah. Sir, ऐसा है ना, वो ऐसे मेरे को कोई complaint नहीं है. She is very, I mean, she has given liberty and she is okay. But अभी initial stage में हूँ, तो मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है कि वो जो specific field की जो guidance होती है ना सर, वो I will be lacking. So मेरी जो research output होगा वो उतना अच्छा नहीं होगा.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that's my. Otherwise, my personal मैम के साथ मेरा ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि वो उनका वो. Yeah, that's.
No, that's fine. I mean, the person could be the nicest person in the world. But if they don't have the expertise to guide you properly, then you're suffering, right? So, well, we can discuss separately over email or chat how to do this. So, by the way, what you're describing happens at many universities. It's not just your situation.
यहाँ ना सर शिमला में इतना वो एक्सपोजर नहीं है. यहाँ पर तो और भी प्रॉब्लम है सर, और रिसोर्सेज की प्रॉब्लम है. एक्सपोजर इतना अच्छा नहीं है, मतलब बाहर की उसके लिए ना. तो यहाँ तो और भी प्रॉब्लम है. हिली एरिया है. It is something.
Okay, Modish, how about this? Let's arrange a chat separately.
Okay, sir. Okay. Fine,
Yeah,
fine, sir.
I'll email you, and then maybe we can Skype separately, and we can discuss your situation because,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Fine, sir.
I understand that it's not a,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
no problem, no problem. Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to grab a cup of coffee. Yeah, and I should emphasize to every other student here, right? So, you know, I'm here not just as somebody to teach you, or guide you through an introduction to data science. If you have any other, questions about, your studies or, um, in life or guidance or anything, I'm also here for you for that. And as is Ramiz. Ramiz is a bit younger than me. We actually were, just to give you some background. Ramiz and I were both working at the same university in Denmark up until September. He is now back in India as faculty at the Tata Institute. And I have since moved to the Netherlands to take a faculty position here. And Ramiz is he's from Kerala, and he has very strong, passionate political beliefs. He's very active in Communist Party politics in Kerala. And I myself, I've been an Ambedkarite for many years, and this is finally my chance to contribute something. And so we're not just here as people to teach you material about the subject. Of course, that's our primary purpose. But if there's anything else that you need from us, we're very happy to do what we can. Anything to do with just asking for suggestions or extra reading on anything. So Ramiz and I have lots of experience in many different countries in education, and some of the things that you will find that you are experiencing in India are not unique to India, in fact. And one of the things that the struggles of people in India who aren't from upper castes, this struggle it's not the same, of course, but there are parallels in certain other societies. I think in the United States, you must have heard about how Black people and minority people are
Excuse me, sir.
treated. Yes.
Sir, about
Yes.
this upper caste and all these things, sir, what I
Yes.
face here is that जो हमारे लोग हैं ना सर वो आई मीन इवन एजुकेटेड पीपल और जैसे कि वट एवर द जो अंबेडकर जो आइडियोलॉजी या जो डॉक्टर अंबेडकर ने जो भी बात की है दैट वाज समथिंग एल्स बट द पीपल दे हु आर फॉलोइंग दे आर समथिंग डिफरेंट तो ये हमारे लोगों के साथ हो रहा है और वो एजुकेटेड लोग हैं देन इट बिकम्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट अब ये ऐसा हो गया है सर कि आइडियोलॉजिकल पोजीशन या कोई भी हो बिलीफ हो वो तो यूनिवर्सिटीज है या कहीं और है तो वो ये ग्रांटेड है कि वो ब्राह्मणिज्म ही उसी थिंकिंग में
हाँ, मालूम है, हाँ।
तो ये चीज ऐसी हो जाती है कई बार आइडियो मतलब अपनी जो पोजीशन है वो बहुत डिफरेंट है और जो जिस चीज से हम लड़ रहे हैं गांव में या उनसे तो मतलब इन अ वे वी आर स्ट्रेंथनिंग दैट सिस्टम ओनली तो ये मेरे को इतना वो लगता है कॉन्ट्रडिक्टिंग कि व्हाट टू व्हाट आर वी सपोज टू डू अभी पिछले कुछ दिन पहले सर एक सेमिनार हुआ था आई डोंट वांट टू कि आप उसको कहीं आगे इसको ऐसे करें बट ये ऐसा यूनिवर्सिटी में था बट वो यहाँ के एक्स चांसलर थे वो वहाँ पे सेमिनार वो दे रहे थे कि वेब कॉन्फ्रेंस लाइक दिस जैसे हम हैं वो उसमें ऐसी ऐसी बात कर रहे हैं कि जैसे हमारे को गाय के लिए वो करना है गाय के ऊपर रिसर्च करो आई वाज मतलब मैं हंस रहा था मन में पर इट वाज मैंने बोल नहीं सका पर हम क्या करें सर अब इसमें
बरोबर
अब यूनिवर्सिटीज में भी ऐसा हो रहा है हर जगह आप कोई भी गवर्नमेंट फंक्शन हो उसमें भी इस तरीके की डेलिबरेटली ऐसा हो रहा है अब
I think you raise an important point, and this is something I was actually going to address as well, right? Which is, so I'm not in India, right? So I'm very far removed from where you are and your struggles. But what I experience, let's say here, is in the similar context of in trying to help, in trying to empower or do things change the laws and things like this. They are, as you say, just reinforcing the system. And in America, for instance, when they talk about race issues, the way they're discussing it is just actually making, reinforcing these separations. And this is not something I am politically myself am quite aligned to. So I bring nothing to this conversation in the sense that my own struggle is, although I am not a lower caste person. I am from a very humble rural family, and we are Marathi. So for us, it's the politics is very different. And for me, it's just about empowerment, and it's about giving you the ability to transcend your circumstances, which is the best I can help as best you can. And what I have experienced by myself with my encounters with academics in India is very much, there is a very strong amount of Brahmanism, and believe it or not, even someone like myself has to put up with it because I don't talk properly. I don't speak the way I'm supposed to. I don't have I'm very stubborn. I don't I'm very typically even though I've grown up somewhere else, my personality is very typically Maharashtrian, and this causes problems. You're supposed to act a certain way. You're supposed to bow down to somebody else, and if you don't have this, then people think you have an attitude problem. You're supposed to know your place in the hierarchy, and this is not something I enjoy. And of course, all of your struggles are going to be different. Every one of you is a different individual, and I feel very self-conscious talking about it because I really have very little to contribute to this conversation other than however I can be of help in your you see, because to me empowerment begins with self-knowledge, and from that you can actually get power in the world, and education is one of the biggest ways in which you can do this. One of the ways in which I've noticed a lot of people actually manage to overcome a lot of these issues is, I don't recommend this for everybody, but just spend some time outside of India. If it's possible, to get a work assignment or maybe go for education somewhere else and see how things are in other places, you will look back upon, where you're from with a different set of eyes. And you'll see, things that are, what really is, what's wrong, what's not, what you can and you cannot do. And one of the biggest things that we do, everybody, okay, not just you, me, but everybody, we live in a prison in our minds, all of us. And these are put in there by various things, by religion, by society, by laws. And one of the things that education does for you is that at least, being able to break out of that prison is very hard work. But before you see that, you have to at least first even see what bars you're in. And I don't know if you know very much about Nelson Mandela. But in South Africa, when when they had apartheid, and when he was released from prison, the whites were very scared of him because he thought that well, we have been suppressing these people for so long. If we give them power, what are they going to do to us? And Nelson Mandela, his idea was, in this society, it's not just the black people that were the victims, but also the white people who, who went along with this system because it robbed them of their humanity. It robbed them from seeing other humans for who they really were. And they themselves live in a prison that they don't see. And we all live in prisons. We all live in prisons in our minds. And it doesn't end with just your formal education. It's a lifelong process of understanding what these bars are. And the one thing that I have seen, that really transcends all humanity and all humans is, education really helps. And not just education to learn things, to get you a job or to give you some, qualifications, but real knowledge and wisdom about how the universe works is liberating. It sets you free. But this is only a part. It's not the solution to everything, but at least it will give you some something. So Modish, I would love to continue this conversation, and anybody, please, I would like to hear your stories, and you should tell me about how these things, how these things work. My own system, my own experiences. My family was very much, I wouldn't say discriminated against, but when I grew up in Hong Kong, and we were not very rich. We were actually very struggling. And the Indian people that we were growing up with, they were very they didn't we were looked down upon quite a lot. I was the first person in my family to be born in a hospital, for instance. I think this is not so uncommon in India, but to a lot of people that I meet, they were very surprised. Um, you know, um, our country is still being made. Okay, it's still being made, and there are lots of struggles that are still being fought, and you are an important part of this struggle. Um, all I can say is that by lifting yourselves up, you will be helping everybody around you in ways that you can't even if it's some other little kid from your village looks up at you and says, "Wow, look at what he did, look at what she did. Maybe I can do that too."
Sir,
This is the small way.
I was talking to my younger brothers and sisters on
Yes.
मतलब जनरल कॉन्वर्सेशन में मैं उनसे बात करता हूँ क्योंकि
Mm,
मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि जो दोज हुवर जो जो तो अब एज में काफी बड़े हैं
mm,
जो इस कास्ट के इश्यूज को और जो ब्राह्मणिज्म के इशू को ना
mm,
इवन आई वाज नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दिस जब मैंने अम्बेडकर को पढ़ा और व्हेन आई केम टू नो दैट इट वाज वेरी शॉकिंग एंड आई ओपनर टू मी कि
mm,
ऐसा भी होता है इस वजह से ऐसा हो रहा है हमारे साथ कास्ट में ये प्रॉब्लम है गांव में ऐसी इस तरीके से होता है तो आई वॉज टॉकिंग टू मैं अपने जो छोटे भाई है उनसे बात करता रहता हूँ कि ये इसलिए है इसलिए तुम्हारे को ये नहीं ये करना है ये चीजें
mm,
तुम गलत है
mm,
तुम क्यों विश्वास कर रहे हो कि किसी बिना सोचे समझे और कोई भी
mm,
छोटा छोटा फंक्शन हो घर में या गांव में वो वही चीजें अभी कोई किसी की डेथ हुई थी पीछे गांव में मेरे दादाजी की डेथ हुई थी तो वो वही चीजें फॉलो कर रहे हैं जो बताई हुई है उसमें लिखा हुआ है गरुड़ पुराण में कि ऐसे ऐसे होना है ऐसे ऐसे करना है मैंने
mm,
मैंने पूछा कि क्यों कर रहे हो फिर उनके पास आंसर नहीं है और वो ऐसी ऐसी चीजें कई तरीके की चीजें हैं फिर मैंने उनको समझाया कि ये चीजें ये इस पर है मनुवाद के ऊपर है इस तरीके से है तो तब वो पर लेकिन उनको ये विश्वास नहीं हो रहा है कि ये गलत भी हो सकता है
mm.
कि ऐसा हमारे लिए किसी ने काम भी किया है डॉक्टर
हाँ,
अम्बेडकर ने या कोई जो भी और हमारे लिए स्ट्रगल किया है तो वो समझते हैं कि ये भगवान का है और ये आस्था है हमारी इस पे ये तो गलत हो नहीं सकता इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू मेक देम बिलीव
I know. Listen, Modish, I think my some of the hardest conversations I've had is pointing out to other upper caste people, for instance. I mean, you know this. I don't need to tell you, but a lot of people in India are against reservations, right? And they'll say things like, like, oh, but why do we need reservations anymore? We should be equal. And then you try to explain to them, what is going on. And the problem is they just don't see it, right? And so, and the problem is that they live in a world of assumptions that they are not challenging. And you will find this, what you're describing is very, very, is very, an extreme example, but let me tell you the ways in which it gets even more subtle. You might find, Modish, for instance, if you get a very good job, and you suddenly start rising up in a company or in some government agency, then other people might get jealous of you, right? And they might decide to start putting tiny little comments here and there to make you feel worse about your work or make you question yourself. And in their minds, these people might be
yes sir
thinking,
you
oh
are
no,
right
I'm a
yes sir
good
i
person.
I never disclosed my caste for one
Yeah, I
two
mean,
year I was working
yeah. Yeah, and so these are things that my view is that we shouldn't rely upon other people to give us anything. We should take it. Okay, and this is where I differ a little bit from, let's say, other people in the West. I live in a country now where there's lots of immigrant people from Morocco and some from Suriname who are actually Hindu people, and they're not doing very well in society. And you ask the people here, why aren't they doing well? Like, oh, they don't like to be educated, and then you talk to them, and then you get a different opinion. And um, when people go out on the street and they demand equal rights and they demand all this stuff, I understand that this is an important thing, but you are asking the power structure that is around you to give you something. That has to be done. What one should also do is to say, you know what, to hell with you. I am just going to get my own, and I'm going to get it, and I don't need you for approval or anything. And this is another thing that I really would like, everybody to is to have this sort of inner confidence, right? That and once you have it, these things matter a little less. I'm not going to say they won't matter, but they will matter a little less. And when you really do something for yourself from your heart with complete self-knowledge, it's not that the injustices go away, but that the injustices matter less. Okay? And they affect you less. And this is to me, empowerment, or part of it anyway. And I wanted to tell you that if you think that it stops at some level, it doesn't. I was doing a master's degree in London at a very it was this place called Imperial College. It's one of the world's top universities. And in my house was a PhD student in nuclear physics, and she was a Dalit from Kerala. And she told me stories that when she finished, the top of her class at IIT Madras in CERM exams, the teachers would take marks off of her because they didn't want her to be higher than some of the Brahmin students. I mean, to me, this is completely shocking, right? I mean, I was very young at the time when she told me. I was only like 21 or 22, and I hadn't experienced anything like this in my life. And it made me realize that that this problem is so prevalent, it's so everywhere, that we must struggle against it. We must fight against it in ourselves and for society. But one of the things that really impressed me about this woman was that she didn't let the anger overcome her. She was just like, well, what an idiot. And that's exactly the right attitude, right? It's like, the guy's an idiot, because when you say that, you are taking away power from this person. When you let this person stay in your mind as somebody who has, is messing up your life or doing something like this, you're giving them power. And that is the one thing we have control over for ourselves. Nobody can take that away from us. If we decide, yeah, well, that person's an idiot, right? And then suddenly, their power goes away. Of course, they still have power over you, right? These are long-term systematic changes that will take generations of work. And generations have been working for this in India. And it's still, the struggle is ongoing and it's going to continue through your generation and your children's generation. It's going to continue. But, I hope we'll get there. But the one thing that you do have power over is to not let I say it like it's easy. It's not easy. It's very hard. But one of the things that makes it easier is self-belief and is self-confidence. Once you have that, it is like a really, it's like Wagnuk in Marathi. It's such a powerful thing. People might try to do these things. For me, especially, I was living in the United States after September 11th, and there was a lot of anti-Muslim discrimination. I had somebody try to run over me with a car. Some people tried to spit on me. I got yelled at all the time. And this is my privilege, by the way. I acknowledge this comes from a privileged place. When I was growing up, not a very wealthy, Indian kid in a very rich society, and I got made fun of at school for being different. And I was the only Indian person in my school. Everybody was, fancy European person. My privilege is, just my parents are very proud people. They're very Maharashtrian. They were just like, and I just sort of felt this strength of being Marathi. I was just like, piss off, we beat the British, there was this fire from inside of me that came out being like, you can do that to me, but actually I'm better than you. I know it's arrogant to say that, but it's these self-beliefs. And one thing that I must tell you that you may not know or you may not appreciate is that if you come to the West, if you come out here, you come anywhere, the United States, UK, you will find that the majority of the people, because they're so used to being given everything by their government, by their society, I mean, much more than you've ever been given, they're weak, right? You give them a little bit of struggle, they fail, they collapse, they can't handle. in some sense, it's not an ideal situation, but struggle makes you stronger. It makes you a bigger person, a really bigger person. And up to a point, of course, you can't be continuously, punished. That's not good for anybody. But what I'm saying is that the perspectives you have on the world are makes you a much better citizen and a much more enlightened person than any number of upper caste people living in cities that go to rich schools. Okay, I can't communicate with these Indian people. I don't like them. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I'm back in India, I just don't. I try to avoid. I have nothing to say to some of these people because they're just from a different India from me, from my family. I have not. Even though I seem like a Westerner to them, I have nothing in common with them because their mentality is so different. So anyway, these are all conversations I'm very happy to have with everybody, and my goal simply, I think, in Ramiz as well in this course is not just to provide you with tools to look for things, but also to to guide you in your various academic pursuits, and some of your struggles you may even find are I have some sympathy with because I've had to get to where I am by myself. I didn't have any family helping me ever, really, not in the world that I'm in. And, I think one of the things that happens is once you succeed a little bit, it becomes a self-reinforcing circle. And then you succeed more, and then you succeed more, and then you succeed more. And then, and what that is the power of confidence. That's all it is. Once you believe you can do something, things happen. And there's a saying in English where they say you make your own luck. Okay, and that's what that means. It's that whenever there's a random situation presenting itself to you, and it could go one way or the other way, the person that has more self-belief and more confidence is more likely to steer the situation in their favor. And these are little things that you don't learn from reading books, you don't learn from textbooks, but you learn from other people, from succeeding yourself, from having the right support networks. And this is the kind of thing that I see that the Nalanda Academy is trying to do, and I'm very happy to contribute what little I can. And one shouldn't, if you have anything to talk about, even saying it out loud is a very powerful thing. If you have all of these doubts and anxieties, don't keep them inside of you. Talk to somebody. Talk to each other. Say them out loud. Because you're by putting them out there, you're stopping them from being inside of you and from eating you up. Okay, so Modish, let's talk some other time about your situation. I think it's not an ideal.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, it's not an ideal situation to not have the guidance you have, but maybe we can find some solution. So, okay, so unfortunately, because I have to exactly run in half an hour, we can go through some of the problems, maybe not all of them, but does anybody else have any questions? So I have a question from Simran about my profession. Okay, so maybe I can just spend 30 seconds talking about it. So yeah, so I am a theoretical physicist. That means so my training was actually in particle physics, so really subatomic physics, and I primarily work on early universe cosmology, so looking at astrophysics and trying to understand the origins of the universe. And the remarkable thing is, 50 years ago, this was just a thing that philosophers used to do. But now it's actually become a science because, and really what made this work is, if you think about long time ago on Earth, Indian and Chinese people, we are two of the world's oldest continuous, civilizations, but we didn't really care so much about what was beyond us, right? I mean, and I think in India, it's very much due to Brahmanism, right? I mean, there was this, don't go past, Kalapani, otherwise you lose your caste. So Indian people were very, very narrow-minded, and so were the Chinese. The Europeans were a bit more adventurous, primarily because they didn't have very many things where they were. It was a very resource-poor part of the world, and many, people were fighting each other for control, and so they had incentives to go elsewhere. And at one point, we didn't know how big the world was. Now we know, right? It's a sphere, and we see everything on its surface. So it's like that for the universe. In fact, if we look out into the night sky, we see stars, and we see, the Milky Way galaxy. If you're in the countryside, you can see it. And the further out we look, because light takes a finite amount of time to travel, we're looking further and further into the past. And we have now gotten to a point where we can see to the edge of the visible universe. It is the first moment that light could actually travel freely in the universe. So if you think about when we are, when it's in the early morning in the countryside and there's mist, and then suddenly the mist clears and you can see. This is what it was like in the universe a long time ago. It was so much stuff that light just kept bouncing off of things and we couldn't see anything. And then it cleared, and that moment was when hydrogen started to form. When these protons and electrons started to form, they just formed hydrogen, and then everything cleared. And that moment we can see. It's a flash, and it's in the form of microwave radiation, in fact. And we can see all the way out to that, and we can see all of the things that happened between then and today. So what we've done is we're creating a map of the universe that might, in the next 50 years, be complete, just like the map of the Earth is now complete. And so by looking at this, we can ask questions like, was it a Big Bang? Maybe it was a bounce. Maybe the universe began and got created again, just like in the Puranas. If you believe in that sort of thing, or the Buddhist cosmology. The interesting thing is, before these were just philosophical questions. Now they're scientific questions. So you could ask, for instance, well, if the universe wasn't a Big Bang, but maybe there was a bounce before the bang, then there would be different predictions for how galaxies would look. And so someone like me goes and we calculate, well, this is what you have to see. And then somebody goes and looks and they say, well, no, so that your theory is wrong. So that in a few sentences is what my research is doing. And Ramiz works on looking at signals from the universe of these very, very light particles called neutrinos. And you should ask him about it. It's very interesting. There are these very, very small subatomic particles that go through everything. I mean, there's trillions of them everywhere, and they don't interact with what we're made of at all, but they're produced in nuclear reactions. So very, very light, but they're basically like ghost particles. And so he works on a laboratory in the South Pole. In fact, really at the South Pole, they've drilled in a 1 kilometer block of ice detectors that are looking for these neutrinos. So that's what he does. And so he's leading that effort from India. At the Tata Institute. So that's what we work on ourselves. And that's how we know a little bit about data science and statistics, because in order to make sense of all of the data from these experiments, we have to use all the tools that we're teaching you, as well as machine learning, which is something that we hope to cover. Okay, so let me switch cameras and let me see. How do I do this? So, percent. Hang on. So let me pin myself. Okay. Can everybody see me at all, or are you just seeing a screen?
We are able to see you, not screen.
Okay, so let me switch to this camera. Hang on.
Sir, can you also demonstrate how to use that Wolfram website?
Yes, yeah. So, okay. I will show you a little bit. Okay, so maybe I'll do it. What I'll do is I'll try to arrange a little tutorial. But the thing is, it's not really essential. It's because what we're going to do is immediately. Okay, so let me just explain a little bit about what we're going to try and take this course. Is between the first and the second modules, we're going to set up a little coding academy where we're going to not only learn elementary Python, we're going to learn this thing called R stats, which is used in data science all the time, where all of the things that I'm using Wolfram for, you will learn how to do there. So it's not essential to learn. It's just an easy way to come up with graphs if you don't have the software handy. So immediately after we finish the introduction lecture, so I just have to make this camera work. Okay. Yeah, so I'll run through it a little bit, but or maybe I'll put up a little PDF in the class so we can. So can you see my my table? Is this something you can see?
Yes, sir.
You can see it? Okay, I somehow can't see it. Okay. Okay, so I need to be able to see what I'm writing. This is not good. Here we go. Okay, so I think this is backwards, isn't it? No. Okay, this should work. Okay, so you can see the notepad.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So what we'll do is we will go through. So I think that there are some questions about problems 4 and 5. Were the other problems okay for you guys? Because so would you like me to go through some of the earlier problems? So which problems would you like me to go through? Is my question. Okay, what I'll do is I'll first just go through one of the quick problems. Let's say question 2, and because question 1, question 2, question 3, they're essentially the same, where there's the same logic, and then I'll do question 5, and then I'll come back to question 4. Okay. So question 2 is suppose that your aunt has been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, right? That only affects 1% of the population. So the incidence rate of this cancer was 0.1% of the population. Okay, so 1% of the population will be 0.01, but this is 0.1%. So the prevalence of this cancer is 0.001. Is this backwards? Can you see this straight? Is my writing backwards or the right way?
No, it's okay, sir. It's fine.
It's okay, good, because it looks backward to me. Okay, good. And yeah, so this is the incidence of this very rare form of cancer. But the way they diagnose it is through surgery. Okay, so this means that it really can only be done once. It can't really be done many times. But what they do in this surgery is that they take out some tissue and they take it to a lab. And of course, this test isn't 100% accurate. So what the specificity of this test is 99%, so 0.99, and also its sensitivity is also 0.99. Okay, these are not the same two numbers. Just to emphasize, the sensitivity is the probability that indeed, if you have the cancer, that the test will show that you're positive, right? So that is, if indeed that you have the cancer, so if indeed that you have the cancer, that the test will show that you have it, is given by this number. This number is the probability that if in fact you don't have the cancer, that the test will show that you don't have the cancer. Okay, so minus. Okay, so really all we're doing is we're applying the same formula that we've been using in the other problem set, which is that the probability that you have the cancer. So I'm just going to change infected I to C because it's no longer to COVID. And if we just work through the same thing that we had before for Bayes' theorem, we have is that the probability that you have cancer is 1 plus 1 minus specificity. That's 1 minus 0.99 times 1 minus the prevalence, minus 1 minus 0.001, divided by the sensitivity, which is 0.99, times the prevalence, which is 0.001. Okay, so this, you can just put into some your calculator. So let me just do that on my end over here. This is saying that the prevalence is 0. Yep. Okay, so if I put in these numbers, I find that in fact, this comes out to being 0.09, basically rounded up. Okay, so it's basically only a 9% chance that your aunt has cancer. And this is really primarily one of the main sort of things I wanted to emphasize by going through this exercise, which is that this is how you should be. So please, I really strongly encourage you to go through the lecture notes, so go through the slides, go through the problem sets and understand Bayesian reasoning, because this is very likely a situation you might encounter in life, okay? Is that these are the questions you should be asking your doctor if you ever have to deal with a relative with a cancer diagnosis, right? Because it could be that if the way to determine it was by a procedure that can only happen once, right, which is a surgical biopsy, then very often the diagnosis will be a false positive. Okay, so and this, by the way, is something I wish more doctors knew, but you know this now. Okay, so if this wasn't an invasive biopsy, if this is something that could just be repeated again and again and again, like in the COVID test, then we just repeat. Okay, so then we just repeat the test, we do it again, but now the prevalence is not 0.001%. Now you're in the population of people who have tested positive or who have had a positive test. So that number becomes 0.09. So if you repeat this with 0.09 instead of 0.001, you'll find that this number, after 2 tests, goes up. And then after 3 tests, it'll be basically 99% certain. So that was the point of these exercises. So the final question is essentially the same question, actually. And so let's just go through it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to solve it for you. I'm going to ask you to tell me. So we're going to do it together. Okay. So question 5 is, let's make sure it's seen. Okay. Well, let me start a new page. Okay. So question 5 is that suppose this is 1985 in India. So I presume many of you weren't born there, but maybe some of you were. And there's only 2 companies producing light bulbs. Okay, so we have Bajaj and Godrej. Okay, and so suppose Bajaj makes 70% of all bulbs, and Godrej makes 30% of all bulbs. Okay, and moreover, you're told that 1% of Bajaj bulbs are defective. And 0.5% of Godrej bulbs are defective. Okay, so now we have a situation where you just go to the market, you go to a store, you pick up a bulb, and it is defective. Okay, so what is the probability? So you find the defective bulb. What is the probability that the bulb was manufactured by Godrej? That's the question. Okay, so how do you think we're going to answer this? Okay, so I'm going to need your help. Okay, so please unmute and answer the following question. So let me just first write down some basic quantities. Okay, so this fact is saying that the probability that the bulb is made by Bajaj is 0.7. Probability that the bulb is made by Godrej is 0.3. 1% of Bajaj bulbs are defective. Okay, so this is saying the probability that the bulb is defective, given that it's made by Bajaj, is 0.01. And the probability that the bulb is defective, given that it's made by Godrej, is 0.005. And the question is, what is the probability, if you find a defective bulb, what is the probability that the bulb was made by Godrej? So this is the question: is what is the probability that if you've given that the bulb is defective, that it was made by Godrej? Okay, so who can tell me where I can obtain this number from, given these numbers? So what am I expected to do here? Does anybody have any clue?
So should we write probability of defective given the Godrej made the bulb?
Yes.
Multiply by probability of defective.
You have to divide. You have to. So okay. So let's
divided by probability of defective.
Divided by, right, times the probability that the bulb is made by Godrej. Okay, and so indeed, so this is what we have to figure out, and this is base theorem, right? But really, you don't have to think of it as a theorem. Let's just bring this over to this side and just see what this equation is saying. If I just write it this way, both sides of the equations are simply the statement that we have found a defective bulb made by Godrej. Okay? Because if you find a defective bulb made by Godrej, that's saying, well, first, you have to find a defective bulb made by Godrej times the probability that the bulb was made by Godrej. Or you found a defective bulb, and then you're asking the probability that that defective bulb was made by Godrej. So both of these sides of the equation actually are saying the same thing. If you just say it out loud in words, they mean the same thing. So base theorem is just taking one of the terms on this side and bringing it down. Okay. So we know what this quantity is, right? It's just 0.5. We know what this quantity is. So the challenge is just to figure out what this is. This is not yet known. Okay, so the question we're interested in asking is probability of the bulb that the defective bulb you found in the market is made by Godrej is given by probability bulb is defective given that it's made by Godrej times it's made by Godrej. But what is PD? Probability that the bulb is defective equals what? Okay. Well, there's only two possibilities, right? There's only two possibilities. Either the bulb is defective and it's made by Godrej, or the bulb is defective and it's made by Bajaj. Okay. So the sum of these two terms gives us the probability that the bulb is defective. So this is our answer. Okay, but notice that this term is the same as this term, so I can just cancel them. So I've said, so the probability that the bulb that you find in the market was made by Godrej is 1/1 plus probability the bulb is defective and it's made by Bajaj. This is the answer. Okay, so this is just getting you to think out in words for yourselves all of the things that we've been doing up until now in base theorem. So, and once you just write out, you see, it involves just converting the statements that are stated into the problems into things that you know how to use within the context of base theory. So this here, let's just write out what this is. So if I just bring this over here, so this guy here is 1 over 1 plus, so this quantity is 0.01. 0.01 times the probability that the bulb is made by Bajaj. 0.7 divided by probability that the bulb is defective given that it's by Godrej, that's 0.005 times the probability that the bulb is made by Godrej. Okay, so we just have to calculate what this is, and the answer is, I have to actually use a calculator for this. Give me 1 second. Or if somebody can tell me what the answer is, I'll be grateful. I'm just figuring it out myself now. Okay, so this number is 0.176, basically. So there's basically an 18% chance. So the answer to question 5 is that there's an 18% chance that the defective bulb, a random defective bulb you pick up at the market is indeed made by Google. Okay, so that was question 5. So it's really the same thing that you've seen before in the context of COVID testing or cancer, but now applied to more general problems you might see in logistics. Okay. And then the final, then question 4 it was not really asking you to come up with an answer. It was just asking you to sort of mess around and see how things worked. So what I will do is I will put up some solutions where you can see exactly how this works. But the problem is, if indeed you're trying to estimate the prevalence of COVID in a given population, given some random sampling, so you have a small sample where some fraction tests positive, and you apply Bayes' theorem, and you somehow can determine these other numbers. So that's explained in the problem set itself, how these numbers could be arrived at. It's telling you that how the results of your random sampling will translate into a general population prevalence. And the question was asking, so if I share my screen, let me just share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. So it just takes some time. Okay, so you should be able to share my screen, see my screen. Can you see my screen?
No, sir.
You can see a graph, right? Yeah. So this is what has been done in the Netherlands, where I live, from the beginning of the pandemic to today, about how many people they think are infected with COVID. And if you look at the official numbers, it's way more than the actual number of people that have tested positive, right? So the official number of people that have been infected in the Netherlands up until now is about 1 million, maybe a little bit more than 1 million. But over time, you can see that, it's basically the number of people under this curve over time. It's quite a few million, maybe even a third of the population has been infected. And what they've done is precisely applying a method like this through a random sample. And they think currently some 170,000 people approximately are infected, which is about 1% of the population, given that there are 17 million people in the Netherlands. But notice this blue bar. What does this blue bar mean? It means that they are unsure of their prediction up to this interval. Okay? Now, why is that? It's impossible to ever know anything exactly, right? It's like when and we will see this again when we do election polling, where we'll actually study what it means to really take a random sample. And we'll go through the mathematics of why you don't actually need, such a big sample to get a reasonably accurate estimate. So let's say they wanted to make an even more accurate estimate. That means that they want this blue band to get smaller and smaller. They want it to become narrower and narrower. There's many ways they can do that. And in order to understand how that happens, this is what the problem set was trying to do. So let me now go back to sharing my, hang on a second, go back to sharing my white. Go. So, okay, we can see this now again. Okay, so can you see? So I hope you can see the. Tell me if you can't see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, so you see, so all of these numbers, these are uncertain. So really, let's take this, right? So really, what this is we have p plus, but then we have plus or minus some error. Okay, this can be 1%, this can be 2%, this can be 10%. It's some uncertainty. Okay, and same with this number. So it's p. This is pi delta is equal to some number. Let's just say pi delta estimate plus or minus. Let me give it another. Let me call it some other symbol. Let me call it little delta. Okay, and so on and so forth. Right. So for this guy, it's p plus I is equal to estimate. So these are all best estimates plus or minus some other uncertainty. So let me call this number, I've already used these guys. Let me use another symbol. Let me call it, I don't know. So in mathematics, they like to use Greek symbols. But if you don't know what these are, you can pick any letter of the alphabet, A, B, C, it doesn't matter. So the question is, if this number is only known to some degree of certainty, if this number is only known to this degree of certainty, if this number is only known to this degree of certainty, what that's going to do is going to cause P of I to equal some best estimate plus or minus, let me just call it now U for uncertainty. Okay? It's just going to be plus or minus some uncertainty. And this number itself can be calculated from these numbers. So we run out of time today. I won't go through this in the class, but in the solution sets. So I didn't need you to solve this. I just wanted to show you. I just wanted you to get a sense of what would happen if this number was only known up to a little bit. This number was only known to a little bit. This number was only known to a little bit. What happens is you will end up with a graph like this, but there are sort of confidence. These are called confidence intervals. Okay, so this is, so this is sort of how much we can be sure at any given time. This is time. This is the number of infected people. That's what's causing this shaded region in that plot. Okay, and this process in statistics is known as propagation of error. So we will see it again. And by the way, all the concepts you're seeing in this introductory course, it's really just an introductory course. It's just meant to introduce the concepts so you get used to them. It's not by any means going to be the last time you see them. So don't worry too much if you didn't completely understand everything in this first pass. It's more just to set up definitions. So you see the concepts. So when we see them again later in a more detailed setting, it's not completely strange to you, and we will cover this again and again. So in the solutions that I will post later today, you will see how this is all worked out. And I think all of you will quickly realize that all of this stuff at this point is just learning formalism. But when you really start applying this stuff is when you will really start to understand and see how this all fits together. So this is definitely our goal for the next module, where we really will be doing as many practical applications as possible. So let's conclude here for today. I have to run to another meeting, but on Monday, Ramiz will begin his lectures on fraud. I will be attending too, because it's something that I would like to learn about, and it should be very interesting. So I will also stress that I apologize for the delays in getting our Marathi and Hindi lectures up. We're working on it, but they should be up for everybody. If you'd like to see us present this material not in English, that should be up fairly soon. So I'm going to conclude the meeting now. Thank you, everybody, for today's session. I will see you on Monday. So have a good weekend and Jai Bhim.
Thank you, sir.